Welcome to the Empowered Money Girl, where we break down the barriers to financial confidence, celebrate women's wins, and reveal the secrets to living boldly and well. I'm your host, Josette Mandela. Today's guest, Dr. Kristine Gentry, is a cultural architect who transforms workplace dynamics through the lens of anthropology. From lecture halls to boardrooms, her journey spans over 25 years of decoding human behavior and reshaping corporate cultures. After a decade immersed in academia, Kristine discovered her true calling, helping organizations thrive by understanding the intricate tapestry of their cultural DNA. Her unique blend of scholarly insight and hands-on experience brings an unmatched perspective to organizational transformation. As the founder of Culture Grove, Kristine doesn't just consult. She partners with organizations to cultivate thriving workplace ecosystems. Her anthropologist toolkit, combined with business acumen, helps companies build cultures that don't just engage employees, but ignite their potential and drive measurable results. Through her signature Foundations program, insightful cultural assessments, dynamic workshops, and compelling speaking engagements, Kristine empowers organizations to write their own success stories. She translates complex cultural dynamics into practical strategies that create lasting positive change, proving that when culture grows, businesses thrive. Please welcome the insightful, innovative, and culture-shaping Dr. Kristine Gentry.
Thank you so much. That was so nice. It's weird to sit there and listen to all that, but it's nice of you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So, can you take us back to the beginning? What was your path that got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, so I was actually born in Panama. My dad was in the military. So my parents are both American citizens, but we lived in Panama. When I was born, they lived there for 4 years. I was like 9 months old when they came back to the U.S. But when I was growing up, they always talked about their time in Central America and how much they loved it. And they traveled a lot, and we had slides because that's what people did back in the 70s when you got your pictures developed. I would do these slideshows for like the neighborhood kids of our travels through Central America, and I just thought it looked so cool. So I would, put up slideshows for everyone. So I was just really interested in Central America because of their experience. And then when I was in high school, in my senior year, I got to go on a ecology field trip to Costa Rica for 4 days. We went to this ecotourism lodge in the jungle, and it was really a life-changing experience for me. We were in like a natural rainforest, but learning about environmental issues and the destruction of the rainforest and how our actions in the US contribute to that in the rainforest in Central and South America. And so then I came back and I went to college. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was interested in environmental studies, environmental issues. And at the time, the college I went to, Baylor University, if you majored in environmental studies, you had to get a double major in something else. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to major in. And I took classes in environmental studies from an anthropologist who worked in the environmental studies department, but was an anthropologist. So she had this, that was her background. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I want to do the kind of work she does. And she did international economic development and studied the impact of tourism on the local population, specifically like ecotourism. So I started, that's how I got into anthropology. I took a class and I loved it. I loved what she was doing, and I thought this would be what I want to do. And then in college, I started going to do research in Belize, first as an undergrad in a summer field school, and then this professor hired me to be her research assistant, and I kept working with her all the way through my PhD, actually. So for about 10 years, I did research off and on in Belize. Usually I'd go for the summer or, a few weeks here and there, but I lived in Belize for about a year doing my dissertation research, which was all on the impacts of tourism on the local population. So I kind of went through grad school I went into a program that what does applied anthropology, where you use anthropology research and methods to solve problems. that part I really liked, as opposed to just studying culture just to learn, which is a lot of anthropologists in academia do that. Um, but I like the problem solving aspect. So as I went through grad school, I kind of ended up on the academic path. I went into academia after I graduated and taught for 3 years at Auburn University. But as I was doing that, I was less and less enamored with academia and decided I was not going to stay in academia. There's too much that, at least for anthropology, to get a really good job, you have to be willing to go wherever the job is. And I became less like I wanted to just go anywhere for the job. I had my daughter by the time. I wanted to be closer to family. So I left academia and ended up working for a consulting firm here in Houston, where I was hired to help them build their research team, their research department. And as I was doing that, I helped them grow their culture practice. So they were building out their management consulting side of the business when they hired me. And my team member was doing values and behaviors workshops with clients, like helping them identify their core values and their core competencies. And then we were creating hiring guides, like interview guides and performance review guides from with those values and behaviors. But I was going, well, the only people who are seen in that are the HR people. Like they're checking the box on these guides, and nobody knows these are the behaviors and values they're being asked to exhibit. So I said we need to do a like culture change program and teach people about these values and behaviors. So I kind of developed our process to do that, which included building culture decks at the time, and connecting the values and behaviors in some kind of creative and memorable way so that people knew what was expected of them, that we shared with all the employees, both, from before they were hired throughout the whole time they were there, and different communication strategies. We connected it to learning and development, and all the HR processes. And then we did rewards and recognition and just developed these big programs for companies to really help embed the values and behaviors into um, the decision making at all levels of the employees in the company. And I really enjoyed doing that work. So eventually I left the consulting firm, did some other things, but decided I wanted to get back into doing that work and decided to start my own firm so that I could help companies improve their culture.
Wow, what a journey all over the country like that and so much traveling as a child. And I mean that trip to Costa Rica sounds amazing. Um, so
Yeah.
at what point in all of that did you decide I'm ready to lead? I want to be the one being the leader and not just a member of the team.
That's a great question. And I actually think from the time I was doing research projects in grad school, I guess it was when I was in grad school, and the professor hired me to be her research assistant, I was helping lead teams of undergrad researchers. So I was always leading teams, I feel like, since I was in um, college, like my early 20s, I guess. And then, when you're in academia, you're your own boss. Like you decide what you're going to teach, what's included in your class, what you're researching, if you're going to get published, like all the things you do. Nobody's telling you to do it. It's part of your job. And if you want to be successful, you know what you have to do. Then when I went into consulting, I mean, I was the head of research, so I was leading any research we did. But then on these culture change, but the way we worked in consulting, and I guess a lot of it's the way consulting firms work, right? You'd gather a team of people to address the client's needs, and different projects would have different leaders depending on what the project was. So whenever it was culture or research based, I would just kind of lead the team. We were a very flat organization, so there wasn't much hierarchy, but depending on the work that needed to be done, different people would step up to lead and say, okay, I've got this. Like if it was a big culture change program or we did some, big safety initiatives for clients, which is culture change, then I would kind of just take over those projects as opposed to some of the more design work that we did or even pure strategy. That was not my area of expertise. So other people would lead those. But so I think, yeah, kind of in all of my roles, I have worked, like I started in academia, then I was in a small consulting firm, then I was at a small data business that was, all remote and, less than 50 employees, so another small business. Then I went to a large healthcare system where I was remote, but again, there was a lot of hierarchy, but we did a lot of cross-functional teamwork again, where there were people would step up as leaders depending on the project. Again, so when I was leading a research project, I was usually the leader. Sometimes I wasn't, depending on when I was brought in. But so in all of those environments, it's different than very large firms where people, or very large companies where people are like, you're either an individual contributor or you're a manager. Which one are you? And I've had, discussions with people and they go, well, what are you? Are you the IC? Are you manager? Like, I don't know what you do. And I was like, well, in all of my experience, we've done both. Like everybody contributes as well as, well, not everybody, but if you lead, you're not only leading, you're also contributing. So, I think that really came from, well, I was gonna say from being in a small consulting firm where, I mean, you had to do everything from building client relationships and creating huge projects to like fixing the jam in the copy machine, and stocking supplies. I mean, you really do all the things, whatever needs to be done in small organizations. So, um, yeah, I feel like I've always had part leader role and part just I'm the worker and I'll get in and get work done as well.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. I've worked for a few small firms myself, and like you say, one day you're the guy doing maintenance, and the next day you're the guy leading the team and getting the work done, and every job in between. Because
Mhm.
as a small team, well, as a small company, you don't have a choice. There you can't really delineate like you can in much larger companies, and
Hmm.
that's kind of the pros. To me, that's the pros and cons of,
Hmm.
big company versus small company. Um, so, taking it to a different angle, how would you define financial independence, and how would you know when you really are there?
So I think I would say financial independence is when you are able to take care of yourself and not depend on anyone else and have like backups that not only you're doing well, you're making money, everything's fine right now, but if you were to lose the income streams, so maybe your primary job, you're still okay. You're still able to take care of yourself and be independent and not rely on someone else to take care of you. Um, so yeah, I think to have true financial independence would be being able to know that you're confident you can support yourself and your family no matter what happens. And I think that's a hard place to get to, for a lot of Americans. We all depend on our paychecks and our job and what's happening. And, I mean, gosh, there's so many statistics about Americans living paycheck to paycheck, right? Who don't have much in savings and all of that. And I was just listening to something the other day that was saying, if you have family that you could live with, if something were to happen to your home, you're, ahead of a whole lot of people in the world. And you're no different than someone who's homeless. You just have a safety net, and it's kind of going through all these things of if you didn't have to pay for college and you're not in, debt, you're not any different or better than someone who does have a ton of college debt. You were just privileged to be able to not have to pay for college. So I think, there's in our country, at least, I don't know the percentages, but some people have these safety nets from generational wealth, from their parents, from who, whatever, however far or not far it goes back. And then some people just don't. They don't have that. And for a whole variety of reasons that I don't believe have much to do with how hard they work. I think a lot of it has to do with just luck and history and where they were. Um, I don't know. I'm thinking of people who have immigrated to this country because of problems in their own country and left behind great career and wealth and resources
Mhm.
to start all over in the US. And now their family don't have that safety net, but not because they haven't worked harder or they didn't have it in the past. It's just crazy, the way things change over time. So. I'm trying to think back. I think I went off on a tangent from your original question, but yeah, I think financial independence is just really being able to take care of yourself through whatever happens. And I think that's really hard to get to in the US. I think there's all these statistics too about one big healthcare issue can set people back for, you know, decades financially because of our healthcare system and how much things cost. So, to be truly independent, I would think you have to be able to, you're okay with those things. Those things aren't going to hurt you because you have so many resources that you can tap into if something like that were to happen. And a lot of us simply don't have that.
Agreed. And of course, it's not something that's taught in school either. So you're kind of starting behind the curve to start with. Um, so how do you feel about your relationship with money? Has it always been the way it is now, or has it changed?
I think it is really changing. I'm trying to change my mindset. I think I was raised, so both of my parents actually grew up pretty poor. And I was raised, I mean, they both went to college, they both had good jobs. So were raised, middle class, but my mom at least really had a scarcity mindset and was always like, we can't afford that. It's too expensive. That's too much. There were things we just weren't going to spend money on. Whereas my dad is more like, oh, it's okay. I'll find the money for it. We can do whatever. We'll find the money. We'll find the money. But he, was careful in spending in his own way. He wasn't a very big spender. Um, but so I grew up with that, like, we never have enough, there's never enough money. Like, you always have to save. You always have to buy everything on sale. You shouldn't, I mean, my mom never got like she never got her nails done. She didn't get massages, things like that were like too, I think she thought they were just what it was like superfluous. Like they weren't important, they weren't
Mhm.
necessary, so they were a waste of money. Like, and she would always comment about, if people had a big house, like, oh, why would they waste their money on that? Or a fancy car was a waste, like everything was a waste of money to her. But it's interesting too, growing up in that because there were things that she spent money on. Like she would travel and she would spend money to go travel and when she got older, um, which I thought was great for her. But she would say, oh, like one time she made this comment about to my kids that like, oh, I can't afford an iPhone like your mom can. And I was like, yeah, because you just spent 10 grand to go to Greece. Like you could if you wanted to. My iPhone's a lot cheaper than your Greece trip. But so we all like watching her say I don't have enough money, but she would save and spend it on the things that were important to her, the things that she really wanted to spend money on. So it kind of taught me the importance of saving, the importance of being careful. But what I'm trying to change is my mindset of like, there's never enough, there's never enough,
Mm.
because I'm, reading and learning about a different way of seeing wealth and as abundance, as energy, like money that comes to us and it goes, and how, I do believe, I know as anthropologists, we did studies and learned about communities where when women controlled the resources, the communities did better. Like everyone as a whole did better. The women are more likely to share with their children and the rest of the community, whereas when men control the resources, they are more likely to spend them on themselves. And this is shown like throughout the world, right? And so I'm a big believer on women needing to be able to make money to control wealth. And I know in our world, I was going to say our country, but I think it's globally, people who have money have power and they can do things with it. And we can do really good things with money. People can do really bad things with money. But I also grew up with that. I was raised Catholic and definitely grew up with the not only is we don't have enough money, but rich, like money is bad, right? Like there's the
Mhm.
church belief of rich people do bad things and they're not going to go to heaven and it's better to be poor, like all that, those Bible verses about that. So I grew up with that kind of mindset and now I'm changing it to no, I see, you know, some wealthy people doing really wonderful, amazing things with the money that they earn and are able to give back and make big contributions and shape the way the world works, what happens in our country. Um, but we also see people who are doing really bad things with their money. So now I'm of the mindset of good people need to make a lot of money so we can all do good things with that money, right? And so that's that's where my focus was. My dad was always one of like he was driven by making a lot of money and he wanted to be really successful and he worked all the time. He's such a workaholic. And so I kind of had this, I used to have this mindset of like, oh, it's because he's so focused on money and all he does is work and I don't want to be like that. And now my mindset is changing on that a bit of like, um, I trying to change it that you don't, hard work doesn't necessarily mean more money. So it's not about killing ourselves, but we need to be smart and work smart. And going after wealth, I don't think is bad anymore. I think it's out there. Why shouldn't we and why shouldn't we help other women, especially to get access to resources so that we can make good changes in our world that we need to make?
Yeah, and those are such good points that you brought up. For example, people get those Bible verses all twisted up because it wasn't that money itself was bad. It was the love of money
Hmm.
is evil. And because people only hear the money is evil part, they forget the beginning is if you love money to the exclusion of all else, that's what they were saying was evil. But like you said, if good people have a lot of money, then they can do a lot of good. And that is definitely a point that I try to bring across as often as I can, because like you say, if you have that stuck in your mindset, it is really hard for you to go from, we'll call you dead broke, barely making ends meet, to being able to have money because in your mind, it's not good to have money. So even if you're working all the time, somehow the money just disappears. Suddenly those emergencies show up. Even if you have a little money in the bank, suddenly the emergency shows up and, oh, look, there goes the money to pay for that emergency. And that's to me, that's like like you were talking about that energy of money thing happening, where the money says,
Hmm.
"Oh, okay, she doesn't want this, so let me give it to somebody else. Here's an emergency."
Hmm. Yeah, that's such and that perspective, I think, I mean, you're so right if we forget that it's not the money itself, it's the greed around it that causes problems. And we don't have to become greedy. And I think I've had a mindset of like, well, the richer people get, the more greedy they get, and they do crazy, awful things. And that's just not true for everyone, right? That's not at
Hmm.
all true for everyone. Certainly some people do that, but then other people do wonderful things with their wealth. So we need to look to them as an example. And then, yeah, the idea, not the idea, this mindset about money as energy that comes and we shape it and we can block our own wealth and all of that. That's very new to me. I'm just learning about that. And that's the part that I think it's a great way to look at it. But I do think I'm trying to slowly reprogram my thinking so that I fully believe it and have, accepted. It's changing a lot of the narrative of what I've had in my head for my whole life. So I'm really trying to learn, change that perspective.
Hmm. So continue on this theme. What advice would you have for women that are just starting out, trying to build their financial independence? It sounds like in your family's case, your dad was more the breadwinner, maybe, and um, so
Actually, no.
did your mother rely on your father, or vice versa?
Well, actually, my mom worked for the federal government. She always had the stable job, and she made, good income, not great, but it was very,
Okay.
very stable. She always had her income, and she retired young and invested her money. So the federal government, you can retire at 55 if you've worked
Mhm.
long enough, which she had. She still worked part-time, like till she died, because she's was a hardworking person,
Mhm.
like could never relax. So she worked all the time too. And then my dad is an entrepreneur. So he occasionally had like corporate jobs, but in between he was working on different companies and had varying success with his companies. So his income was more up and down. She was the stable one and she was the saver. And he was the no, I'm going to take whatever I make and invest it into this. And he's very generous there with his whatever. So if he was making money, he was buying great things for everyone. Like he was just, kind of it came and it went, and because he was not the saver. So they were very different with money, like completely different. Um, and her kind of secure, just safety thing was appealing to me. But at the same time, I didn't want to go into that I'm going to sit in the same job in the same desk for 50 years or whatever, 30 years, like she did. So I'm a little bit, I think, of a mix of them because I'm more the entrepreneur, like, more creative in the work I want to do and how I work. But I try to, and and I've always been good about saving money that I make and trying to, be prepared for when it's not coming in as much as, for those lower times. But yeah, so they both work, and even my mom's mom worked, my dad's mom worked. Like I come from, family of people who work a lot. That's the kind of message we got growing up is very much like we work really, really hard and don't like any rest is bad. So I'm also trying to learn or unlearn that part and be like, no, I don't have to work 24 hours a day. Like I need to take rest and not feel guilty about resting and taking breaks and taking care of myself because I think that's all important in the whole building wealth. We don't want to burn ourselves out and we can be really unhealthy and trying to, do good in our careers. And I try to balance that.
Yeah, and absolutely, that is so important. Being true to yourself, taking the time for yourself, because like you say, if you're burned out, you can't help anyone.
Hmm.
And it is necessary for women to take that step back and not feel guilty if you take a day off, or like you said earlier, your mother didn't want to have her nails done, or take a spa day or something like that because she just couldn't see the value in it. And um, and that's sad
It is. I
because
know.
you really
Yeah.
need the downtime.
Yeah, you need to be able to enjoy your life. And it after she retired, is when and this is sad too. She retired at like 55. She died at 72 from cancer. But and actually she had got breast cancer shortly after she retired. And
Oh
then,
no.
so she had a few bad years, but had about 8 years of really good, like that's when she started traveling a lot and spending time with her girlfriends. She and my dad had divorced
Mhm.
many years before, and she was really enjoying her life, having a great time, and then got sick again and died. Um,
Oh.
but she was one who like worked super, super hard so that she could retire, enjoy her life, and then, I mean, she got to for a while, but not nearly as long as she wanted. And yeah, it's sad that all those years she didn't treat herself, she didn't let herself go, enjoy the things that she liked to do. So have learned from that. I enjoy a spa day and I will take a spa day and and don't feel guilty about it. I feel so much better when I relax and give myself some time to take off and then come back and I'm way more productive. So I learned what not to do on that one from her.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So, I'm thinking that you believe that women should always have money of their own. Would that be
I
true?
do. Yes. I think that's really true. Um, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen and whether it's you get divorced or your husband dies or something else, awful happens. We just don't know. And I think we should all have access to our own money so that we can support ourselves when we need to. And, you just hear so many awful stories of women who don't have access to their own resources, being stuck in a marriage they shouldn't be in, or the husband dies and they don't know what to do because they've never touched the money before. I mean, I think financial literacy is super important, and like you said, we don't teach it, and I think we really should, and for everyone. I mean, I don't think just women. I think we all should be able to take care of ourselves and know how to manage money, how to like have the right mindset, so that an abundance mindset, so we attract money and we know what to do with it when we get it. It's really important.
Yeah, and what's sad about that is that I was reading not too long ago the statistics from 2019 that said that there are over 16% of women over the age 65 that are living at or below the poverty line in the US. I
Oh,
mean, to
wow.
me, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
basically one in five. So if there were five of us in that age group in a room, potentially one of those women is in that boat. I mean, that
I know.
is, I can't even wrap my head around that number.
I know. I know. And that's what I was saying too. I mean, I have a mix. This is where I think I still struggle with the mentality because like realistically, we know how difficult healthcare is in the US and job stability right now is a big issue. Lots of people are like the unemployment numbers went way up. I guess we lost jobs in last month. Um, Healthcare is expensive, all these things we're losing our safety nets as well if, things continue the way they are. Um, so a lot of people don't have the backup plans or strategies because they don't know and they didn't have access to resources or they didn't, I'm thinking like my daughter now is college student and working for the summer at a restaurant. And so for her, it's a summer job. It's a great summer job, but she's working with some people who are her same age and that's their full-time job and they're not going to college and I don't know what their long-term plan is. And the managers of the rest, and I'm thinking there's all these service workers, they're jobs we really need and it's great that people do them, but they don't provide insurance. They don't, they're probably making enough hopefully to pay their bills. I know like right now the restaurant isn't as busy as normal, so everyone's hours are getting cut and I keep really feeling for the full-time people who support themselves this way, as opposed to someone, like my daughter who's earning her extra money. Um, it's such a struggle, and I don't know how. So on the one hand, I'm like, oh, but people work so hard and we struggle and we don't have the things we have to worry about healthcare, we have to worry about retirement, we have all these things. And on the other hand, I'm trying to create this abundance mentality and mindset of there is a lot of wealth in this world. I know there is, and in this country too. And we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of way we can make money. Um, and I just think we have to try to be creative and figure out different streams of income. Like a lot of us rely on that one stream of income and like the kind of jobs my mom had. I mean, federal government used to be secure. That's what you could go and do and know you may not like your job. I mean, my mom hated her job. She really did. For 20 years, she complained about it and was counting down the days till she could retire. And then she did. But even now, those jobs aren't safe. We can't assume any job. It's not the same as for like my parents' generation where they worked at one company forever and then they got a great pension and it took care of them. We have to be more creative and
Mhm.
strategic and find multiple streams of income because you don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, I think we need more education, more podcasts like yours where people are learning from each other. And I love, there's some other podcasts out there about women and finances that I just think are so great for us to all learn from each other and to discuss these issues because it is changing. And I think we're going to have to be smarter. I was going to say work harder. It's not work harder. It's be smarter, be different and strategic about how we support ourselves going forward and where we invest our money and, how we teach um, each other what we can do to be successful and financially independent. Like, how do we get there?
Absolutely agree. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And a huge thank you to Kristine Gentry for sharing her wisdom and energy with us. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share the Empowered Money Girl with your friends. The more we spread these stories, the more women we can empower to live boldly, both financially and in every part of their lives. Until next time, keep thriving and remember, your journey to empowerment starts with you.